Hi everyone. I'm not in my usual environment. I'm traveling a bit for work this week, but I wanted to go ahead and do this video really quickly about this series of operas that I have seen over the last week, and it is actually the Ring Cycle by Richard Wagner. And the first opera that I saw was Das Rheingold, so I just wanted to do a quick video about this my experience with this opera, and I'll do actually videos about the other three as well. So, but I wanted to, while it's still really fresh in my mind, go ahead and just have a brief chat about it. So here is the playbill. The Ring of the Nibelung by Richard Wagner. And this was by Washington National Opera at Kennedy Center, and I saw the performance of Das Rheingold on April 30th there at Kennedy. So here is the cast from Das Rheingold. I'm not going to read the whole, let's see if I can get this where you can see it. I'm not going to read the whole cast just because of time, because I'm going to try to keep, as usual, my videos to around 12-14 minutes, and so we will quickly run out of time. So there's the cast. It was a wonderful cast. The conductor is Phillippe Auguin, and the director is Francesca Zambello. And the cast itself was just amazing. But it's all the names there. So just a brief synopsis about the opera in case you don't know what the opera is about. So Das Rheingold, The Ring itself is a series of 4 operas, and Das Rheingold is first. It's considered sort of like an overture. So who we have in the cast of characters mainly in Das Rheingold are, there's the 3 Rhine maidens who guard the gold in the Rhine. There's 2 giants, Fasolt and Fafner. Then there are the gods, Wotan, Fricka, his wife Fricka. Wotan is sort of the chief god. Then Fricka, his wife, her sister Freya, and who is the goddess of youth and beauty, and her brothers Donner and Fro. And Donner is the god of thunder, sort of like Thor. He carries a hammer. And Fro is, I think, rain and god of rain and maybe springtime, I think. And then the other chief character is Alberic, who is a Nibelung, from a race of dwarves, who plays very heavily in the outcome of the opera. So where we start the opera with the Rhine maidens are singing and dancing in the Rhine. They have the gold there. Alberic comes up on them and tries to really seduce them, or actually not necessarily seduce them, but actually snatch one of them. And they tease him. I think they don't take him that seriously. They tease him. He gets in a fury and finds out that he can steal the gold that they have, the legendary gold, by renouncing love forever. So he does this and gets away, leaving the Rhine maidens completely distraught. Meanwhile, back with the gods, Wotan and Fricka are discussing their new home that's just been completed. It's Valhalla. It's a giant building. Wotan had contracted with a race of giants to build Valhalla, and those are represented by Fafner and his brother Fasolt. But Wotan had originally actually promised them Freya in payment for building Valhalla, his sister-in-law. And he had promised this on a spear. He has a wooden spear that's been taken from a branch of, the world tree, the world ash tree, sort of this magical tree that where Wotan got most of his power, or I think got his power because he got he managed to get a stick from that became his spear. He carved in the contract on that, and what's been carved in the contract basically becomes sort of like universal law, and it can't easily be unbroken. So, of course, Fricka is sort of flipping out because time has come to pay the giants, meaning they're going to have to give her sister, Freya. Freya is also running from the Giants. The Giants are coming for their payment. Her brothers Donner and Fro are ready to fight the Giants. The Giants appear. They want their money. I mean, they want Freya. So Wotan tells his wife, I actually had never actually meant to give them Freya, but I'm depending on Loja to come along and think of another way, another form of payment that the Giants are going to accept. And Loja is actually sort of a demigod. He's fire, the god. He's not really a god of fire. He's sort of like a spirit, maybe an elemental spirit of fire that works with Wotan and actually had worked to contract with the Giants originally to get Valhalla built. Well, Loja comes up with an idea that since Alberic stole the gold from the Rhine Maidens, it would not break any sort of universal law for them to steal the gold from him. But, the ring, he has since made a ring out of the Rheingold, and the person who has been able to make this ring out of the Rheingold, the ring is all powerful. So it bestows on him an enormous power, so it's going to be very difficult to defeat him. And also, meanwhile, Alberic has enslaved the rest of the Nibelung people to basically work day and night to get him more gold. And also, his brother has made him this sort of magical, it's called a Tarnhelm. It's a helmet that he can wear that can change his form. And so he's got a lot of power. He got these objects that bring him a lot of power. Well, Wotan and Loja go to meet him, and they wind up tricking him into changing himself into a toad, a little small toad, and so they were able to subdue him that way. And I should mention also since I'm telling this story, opera doesn't really have spoilers. The program always explains the entire piece, and it's actually good to know the piece beforehand. So I am giving away the story, and I will in all of my opera videos. I should have said that earlier, but anyway, so they end up with the gold. So Wotan once he has the ring and the gold, he doesn't want to give it up. But they return back to where the Giants are. The Giants meanwhile, they had taken Freya hostage. While she's being held hostage, the other gods are all becoming very weak because Freya is the goddess of youth and beauty. So once she's gone, she grows these apples that give the gods that keep them young and give them their immortality. So without her there, they didn't eat an apple that day. They're starting to get weak. So anyway, the Giants bring Freya back, and so Wotan starts trying to bargain with them, and ultimately he decides he can go ahead and give him the gold, because as long as he has the Tarnhelm and the ring, he can get gold again, because it brings such power. Well, they see the ring. They won't give up Freya without all the gold, including the ring. So Wotan ends up relenting. Alberic, when he had lost the ring, he had ultimately cursed it so that whoever had it, nothing but woe and despair would come to them and trouble. And so as soon as the Giants actually get the ring, they quarrel with each other, and Fafnir kills his brother Fassel, but then goes away with the Rheingold ring and also the Tarnhelm and the rest of the Golden Horde. So, but the gods, they feel pretty good. They feel like that they've got what they wanted. They have Valhalla now. They're in power. At the height of their power, they ascend into Valhalla, and that's sort of how the first opera ends. So, my experience with it, the first thing that you're met with when this opera starts is this beautiful overture, and there's a lot that can be said about Wagner's music, but this overture is so, it's just so beautiful, and it puts us such in the mood of this world and in this, this story, because this overture starts with just sort of a flat, monotonous sound, because what it's depicting is actually time. It's before time, so there's nothing going on. It's just this, and then slowly it becomes more complex, because as the universe then begins to form, the overture progresses, and then by the time it's over, it has progressed to the point where we have water it's the sound. It's sort of like fluid, like water, the Rhine. So that's the first experience that you're struck with this opera, and I just loved it. A couple of main themes that I took away from this particular opera, Das Rheingold. Really, I thought it really portrayed power. Really was one of the main themes was power and sort of the limits on power, and the quest for power and where that can lead us. Because I think that what it really showed when Wotan was forced to give up Freya, he was actually going to have to do that because his limits on powers, he had already made this contract. Like there's something he couldn't cross that particular line, and that becomes more relevant in the later operas, where the more things go on, the more complicated they become, and so the more we're sort of pushed down one path. And I think this is true of our lives, where you make one decision, it sends you in this direction, and you can't necessarily go back the other direction that easily. And so I think that this opera shows this sort of aspect of of life very well. And I think the gold itself was this elemental force. It was gold, yes, but I think it represents an elemental force that is some sort of basic elemental force that if it got out of balance, everything until it gets back in balance, there's nothing that's ever going to get to be right. And I think this can apply also to our lives in general. If we can see this play out in our lives where something may have happened, or we may have made some decision where it is the wrong one, and until we put that right, then things in our life are never going to be the same. So that's sort of on a micro scale, but this story is telling a very macro story because, of course, it's pertaining to the whole universe. So the gold is stolen. This elemental force is stolen from where it had been since the beginning of time in the river, and the universe was just not going to be the same until that was restored. Of course, the people around there, it takes them a long time to learn this, and they do not begin to comprehend it in Das Rheingold for sure. They don't understand yet quite what the ramifications to that are. Although the Earth, I didn't mention Erda. Erda has a brief role. Erda is the Earth goddess. I mean, she's not really a goddess. She's an Earth spirit because she's not one of the gods of Valhalla. She's an Earth god, so they're different. She's a different type of god, but she actually ascends from the earth at one point and warns Wotan to shun the ring, that the ring would bring him nothing but trouble, and it would actually mean his end eventually. So she gives him a warning there in Das Rheingold. So the other, really quickly, because I'm running out of time, but the other really strong message I think I took from the opera was the subjugation of women. It sort of relates to power, but at the very beginning of the opera, the Rhine maidens are actually, they have this stolen from them, the Rheingold stolen from them by Alberic, and they are then subjected, they're subjugated, they're powerless to really stop it at that point. And Freya, of course, she's totally powerless. She's about to be given away sort of as property and without a single thought with her input at all. So this gets started in the early operas, and I think it is shown through the rest of the other three operas too as we move along. So I think that's, we also kind of talk about, it's also sort of an environmental, I think this shows up more in the later operas, but the environmental aspect of, I think that this particular production, which we'll talk more about in later video, really tried to show us that elemental force that was taken from the river, and in this interpretation of this production also pertained, I think, to environmentalism and climate change and human impact on the balance of Earth itself through climate change. So, anyway, I loved the opera. It was a fantastic experience. I will be doing videos on the other three very soon, so stay tuned for that. And until then, see you then. Bye.